Today we're going to be talking about watercolor pencils, and I love watercolor and I love colored pencils. So in theory, I should love watercolor pencils. However, you never see me use them. Why is that? Because I don't love watercolor pencils. And it's not because they're a bad supply. I'm sure there's lots of potential for them. It's just one of my personal preferences that I would rather just use normal colored pencils and normal watercolor. But I have gotten the request enough times to show you how to use them that's exactly what I want to do today. Now, first of all, what's the big difference between normal colored pencils and watercolor pencils? And it really comes down to whether they are water soluble. So normal pencils, when you put water on top of them, are going to stay exactly how they are. Watercolor pencils is going to flow around at least a little bit. And one kind of cool thing about watercolor pencils is that you can actually use them in a variety of different ways. The first of which is that you can just use them straight out of the packaging, dry, and just color with them like they're a normal colored pencil. Now, the second option is that you could actually pre-wet the lead of the pencil just by dipping it in some water, and then you can color with it, and it gives it kind of more of a smooth, creamy consistency to apply, and you get a lot more of that color and pigment. And if you didn't want to have to constantly dip the colored pencil into water, you could pre-wet your paper and then draw on top of it. You'll get a kind of scratchy appearance, but it gets a little bit more fluid and it's a little more creamy. Now, in a similar vein, you can also do this on top of wet watercolor. It's just kind of a fun way to get a little bit of flow, but also add a little bit of detail right onto what you've already painted. And the final way, in order to kind of get the most of the watercolor portion of the pencil out of them, is to draw with them like normal colored pencils, including adding shading. And then once you're done with your drawing, you just take a brush and fill it with clean water, and then you can smooth things together, and it will all kind of start to flow together just like watercolor does. In general, these are a super versatile and fun supply, but I still tend to typically just reach for normal colored pencils and watercolor. In my art practice, my preference for using colored pencils for any sort of creation is to either use them fully dry as their own part of whatever I'm creating, or to use them on top of wet watercolor to add in a little detail, or even on top of dry watercolor. And you can actually do both of those things with normal colored pencils. And I tend to find that the colored pencils that I typically reach for are nicer quality in those instances than with the watercolor pencils, because the watercolor pencils really only get their super vibrant, smooth qualities when they're actually wet. That's the basics of watercolor pencils. I would love to know what your preferences are. Do you like watercolor pencils? Have you tried them? Are you curious about them? Or do you just stick to colored pencils?